Hey everyone, it's May and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys all about my experience in the TEFL training program at Cal State Long Beach. So, for those of you who don't know, TEFL stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language, and there's a lot of acronyms out there like ESL, English as a Second Language, TESOL, Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages, but they're basically all part of the same field. But this TEFL program that I did was 160 hours in-person training for going abroad to teach English. You can't really use the certificate here. It may help you get some sort of like a tutoring job or whatnot, but you can't actually use it to teach ESL because you would need a teaching credential or a master's in TESOL if you wanted to teach in the US. But for a lot of foreign countries, it's what you need to teach English there. So that's why I did it, and that's why all the other people in my class did it as well. So basically, in this video, I'm just going to go over everything about this program, how it was structured, what we learned, etc. For those of you that are interested. I know before I did this program, I had so many questions as to like how it would actually work, so hopefully I can get those answered for you in this video and kind of explain what it's really like to learn how to teach English, like how the class is structured, because that was what I was most curious about. And obviously this program is going to differ quite a lot from other in-person training programs and from online training programs. Everything's going to be very different. It'll probably be structured differently, but a lot of the principles will probably be somewhat the same for learning how to teach English. So a little background on why I decided to do this program. It was my sophomore year of college, and it was in the fall. I was having a crisis because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was realizing that I was like freshman year, I was like, oh, I'm going to major in creative writing and become an author, blah, blah, blah. Was like a little bit head up in the clouds, and I needed to have like a solid career plan. And I was thinking about changing my major to nutrition, and I was freaking out. I was wondering if I should really be an English major. And I decided to add a French minor and a linguistics minor. I think I had already declared the French one, but then I decided that starting junior year, I would take linguistics classes to work toward that minor, and I would also do this TEFL program and then look at teaching English abroad when I graduated. So I've known that I want to do this for quite a long time, and so I had planned to do it this summer. I looked into it and stuff. I will link the website down below where you can see like the information and when the next informational meetings are and when the next training program will be. I'm pretty sure they only do it in summer, but there might be like a fall or winter one, I'm not sure. Yeah, and then there are like informational meetings during the semester that I actually couldn't go to because when they had them I was abroad, but I had actually signed up before. I signed up last January and it started in June. I just wanted to get it like out of the way before I went to France so I didn't have to worry about it. I just like signed up online, paid, and that was it. It is a bit pricey. I'm sure you can find online training programs that are less money, but to me it was very worth it to do it in person because I was interacting with the instructors, I was interacting with the other students in my class and discussing things with them in person, and we actually got hands-on experience with ESL students because our classes were in the same building as the ESL classes at the American Language Institute. It's in CPI, the College of Professional International Education. I always forget what it stands for. Like the new building on campus. So we actually got experience having conversation lab with them, which I'll go into later, and teaching them. So that was really important. Like I don't think I would have felt nearly as confident as I do going out to teach in the future if I had just done like, oh, in theory, this is what I would do online. Like actually having taught a lesson and reflected on the lesson and done it multiple times, that makes me feel like, okay, I can take what I learned from that and put it into practice when I actually teach my future classes, if that makes sense. Like I needed to have that hands-on experience. And that's also important when you're applying for jobs. You can say I actually have experience versus just having the certification. It's like kind of an added bonus because if you do, like I said, like if you do it online, you're not going to get that. But I know that it's definitely hard for a lot of people. Like I'm so lucky that I had 6 weeks where I could just solely devote it to this. Like a lot of people don't have that sort of time, like they're working already or something, and they have to do it online, which is fine. Like anyone can do this, which is the cool thing about it. So a couple more general things before I go into the structure and what we actually learned. The program was 6 weeks and it was Monday through Thursday, 9 to 3:15, and then we had 11 hours of required conversation lab outside of class and homework as well. So our conversation lab hours were meeting with the ESL students that chose to stay after their classes, and there would be little sheets of questions for the day, and we just talk to them and ask them questions about the topic or talk about whatever. It's not like we had to stick to that. So a lot of times we just talk about like cultural differences or like what they missed from home or whatever, just for an hour, and it was just for them to practice their language in a more informal setting. I'm actually still volunteering there right now, and that's really good experience as well. And then we also had homework, which was done during the weekend usually. Sometimes there would be stuff due during the week, but most of the time you could do it like Friday through Sunday. It was definitely not like a crazy amount of homework until the end, which is my fault because I like pushed all my long-term projects off till the end. The only week-to-week homework we had was doing grammar in our workbook, reading and doing discussion posts on the reading, and then responding to people's discussion posts. And then we'd be observing the ESL classes, so we'd have observation forms to turn in for that. We would have to plan our lessons, so usually we'd be like collaborating with someone else and we'd be planning the lessons and like revising them over the weekend. If we had just taught a lesson, we had to do a reflection on it. And then we had a few long-term projects that were part of the like career focus part of the program. So we had to make a website, we had to do a career plan, and we had to do this analysis project of an ESL student where we did an interview with them and recorded it, and then like wrote a paper on their strengths and weaknesses and what they could do to improve, and like what some of their mistakes might be rooted in, like how their native language like influenced their English and stuff like that. So I just saved all that till the last week, which is really not smart. Don't do that if you do this program, because then it became very overwhelming. But something that I'd really wondered about before this program was if it would be possible to work during it, because I really had like no concept of how much homework there would be, and like honestly I wouldn't really recommend it, but if you need to, like it's possible. Like there were 2 people in our class that did have jobs that would work like Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's just a lot because like it's not like normal college class time. It's much more than that, like solid 9 to 3:30 every day. Like obviously you get breaks and like lunch break, but you're like on campus, you're engaged, you're talking, you're interacting with students, you're teaching. It's like so much, and especially someone like me who's like introverted, it was just like, oh my god, like I go home like fried at the end of the day. Especially if we stayed for conversation lab, then it was like you didn't get out till 4:30, and it was just super long days, and then like to have to do your homework on top of that, like yeah. So I wouldn't recommend it, but if you like need to work, it's possible. So that's basically the overall structure. And now for what we actually learned. So before the program started, we had a little bit of pre-reading, and it was basically learning about the student-centered classroom, and this is a principle that we kind of carried with us throughout the whole program. So it's making the classroom interactive and focused on the students more than the teacher. So instead of teaching the language, just like lecturing it and doing drills and stuff, which are obviously important at like the base level, but making the class really personalized to the students and having them discuss with each other and interact as much as possible, even with things like reading and writing. So for each unit, that was really worked in to it, and our instructors taught us that by doing it in our class too. So like when we'd go over stuff, we would discuss it in groups and then discuss it as a class, and we do group activities and engaging things in our class as well. So we really learned how to do it. Like that's one of the main things that I absolutely loved about this program, that everything we learned by doing. It wasn't just like, in theory, this is what you do in a classroom. In theory, this is how you plan a lesson. Like, no, like we actually had to plan a lesson and go and teach it and then see like what we did well and like what we had to improve on. Like we self-reflected and then got feedback from our instructors as well, which was super helpful and important. And like there weren't tests or anything, like it wasn't a test-based program. Like basically the lessons that we taught were our exams, but I didn't feel like we needed tests. Like everything we learned, we deep learned by engaging with it so much in class. So yeah, in case you're wondering about that, there are no grades. Everything you do is you either complete it or you didn't, and you get feedback on it, but you can't get your certificate at the end if you don't do everything. It's like you have to turn in all these assignments and you get feedback on them, but not a grade. I'm losing my voice, but yeah. That's how it's structured. At the end, it's either you get your certificate or you don't. It's like a pass-fail class, basically. The course was split into units. So we'd spend about a week or a little bit less on each unit, and we would work with it in class, have discussions, practice, pretend that we were students doing the lessons, and then we would observe an ESL class on that particular language function or part, and then we would plan a lesson based on it, teach our lesson, and then reflect on it. That was kind of like our weekly schedule. Our first unit was just teaching. So at this unit, we basically just learned how to, introduce yourself to a class, how to set up a class, how to give rules, how to have students introduce themselves to each other, like get to know you games and stuff. We learned like different teaching methods. We learned how to group students, like fun different ways to group them and partner them up, how to control a classroom, like classroom management, things like that. And we did like a micro teaching assignment where we just taught on something we knew well to our classmates. So like we weren't actually doing anything with the ESL students yet. And then this continued on with listening, speaking. So basically in this unit, we would look at different listening exercises and be like, which are good listening exercises, which are bad listening exercises, how authentic should they be, for what level would this be good or not good, and same with speaking. And then we had an observation of a listening speaking class in one of the ESL classrooms, and then we filled out our observation form, then we got together with a partner, planned a lesson, taught it. So like for my partner and I, we did interrupting. So basically we had to come up with a lesson, how to introduce interrupting, and come up with a few activities for students to do to learn how to interrupt politely based on what was in their textbook and sort of lead them in that. And that was our first experience with teaching. And then we reflected on it, discussed it in class, and then our next unit, things just kind of progressed like that. So we did the same thing with reading and writing. And then for reading and writing, we did the teaching, and then we also did writing tutoring with an ESL student. And then we did grammar. And then we did testing. So we administered a test to the students, learned how to create a good test, what are different kinds of tests, like, etc. And then we learned about English for specific purposes, like studying for the IELTS or the TEFL tests, like if you're teaching a class that's based on prep for one of those, business English, things like that, like how a class that was geared toward one specific section of English would be structured. And we did an enrichment lesson for that. So basically people got like different classes. I just had a vocabulary class, so it wasn't too bad, but some people were actually teaching like business English or like TOEFL prep. And then our last unit was culture shock, so kind of the teaching abroad part of teaching abroad. So we learned like cultural differences and like looked at conversations with cultural misunderstandings, learned about how culture shock worked, like all that stuff. I think that unit was called the Global Educator or something, but anyway, that was it. And then obviously we didn't teach a lesson on that. That was just for us. And then at the end we had our little certificate ceremony. So yeah, that's basically it. Honestly, I could not recommend this program enough. If you live near CSULB or go to CSULB, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. The instructors were absolutely amazing. We had 3 different instructors, 2 that taught our normal classes, and then one that she just came on Thursdays, and we worked on things like our resumes and our websites and stuff like that. So it was more like the career focus side of it. They were all so knowledgeable. They've had a lot of experience in ESL, and some of them have been abroad to teach, and I think one of them had just taught here. So they would always share their experiences with us, and they were open to any questions. They were very organized, friendly, like everything. Like the program itself was very organized, and it was just all around very good. And I am very thankful that I got to do this training program to get my certificate. So yeah, I could not recommend it enough, and I think I pretty much went over everything, but if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I know before I did my program, I was just so lost and had no idea what it would be like, and I couldn't find very many videos that talked about it, so hopefully this helped, but please, please, please let me know any questions you guys have, and I would be more than happy to answer them. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. I make videos every Monday and Thursday. Please like and subscribe. Bye.